Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 161. We have some Glenn Dubin and Les Wexner news to get to. We all know that both of these clowns have been caught up in the fallout from their ties to Jeffrey Epstein. We've seen them both fall from grace right before our eyes, and the hits just keep on coming. We have an article today from the Harvard Crimson. And this article was written by Emma R. Schumer, and the headline is, Epstein-linked donors Dubin and Wexner depart from HKS Leadership Council. Donors and billionaires Glenn R. Dubin and Leslie H. Wexner departed from a Harvard Kennedy School board last month, foregrounding students' concerns regarding Harvard's ties to donors who cultivated relationships with deceased sex offender, pedophile Jeffrey E. Epstein. Well, better late than never for Harvard, huh? Considering their ties with Jeffrey Epstein, if they think we're going to forget just how much they were in bed together, well, they're wrong about that. But I will say that this is a promising sign. Now they're starting to try and clean up their reputation a little bit. This is definitely a step in the right direction. Nobody should be associated with Glenn Dubin and Leslie Wexner, considering what both of these clowns are accused of. I mean, you have Virginia Roberts pointing the finger at Glenn Dubin, saying that he was involved in the trafficking ring and that she was trafficked directly to him. You have Leslie Wexner. We don't even need to get into the ties of his and Jeffrey Epstein, right? I mean, we all know how deep those ties run, from money to being close as, confidants, from Jeffrey Epstein being in charge of the guy's whole entire fortune, pretty much. We understand how deep those ties are. These aren't casual relationships. These guys were very, very close. And the fact that they were still sitting on this board at Harvard, the fact that Harvard would even entertain having people like this on the board, well, it just goes to show you how much Harvard really cares. Again, you have a lot of these professors that come from these Ivy League schools, and they stand atop their ivory towers, and they dictate down to the rest of us as if they know what's best for society, and they know what's moral. But in reality, these people have been enabling people like Jeffrey Epstein for decades. Academia is just littered with scummy people, folks. As early as February 11th, Dubin and Wexner's names no longer appeared on a Harvard website listing members of the Advisory Council of the Center for Public Leadership, a scholarship and co-curricular program affiliated with the Kennedy School. Wexner co-chaired the council with his wife, Abigail S. Wexner, whose name has also been removed from the website. And you know what? Good for them. And good for Maria Farmer. All right? Good for my good friend, Maria Farmer. It's Wexner and his wife both knew exactly what was going on in New Albany. They knew what was up. They knew exactly what was going on, and they didn't say a word. They didn't try and help. They didn't try to intervene. Maria Farmer was left there in complete and utter terror on their property, and for them to run around and act like they're not complicit, for them to run around and act like they had nothing to do with any of this, it's obscene. It is absolutely obscene. And, they might not be slammed in cuffs yet. They might not have been called before prosecution yet. But, folks, look at the blowback here. This is serious blowback on these people. And it's hitting them where it hurts them the most. Their social standing. When they can no longer have that social standing, when they're no longer entrenched in society, well, they no longer have the power. So this is one of the first steps to shaking them from their perch. And it's working well. If you see all of these bigwigs, you see how they're on the run. You see the fallout around them, and you see that nobody is letting them get off the hook at this point. It's pretty awesome to see that they're really, really feeling the effects and feeling the heat. The Kennedy School also removed Dubin's name from the Dean's Executive Board, which boasts some of the most committed financial supporters to the school who served trusted advisors to Kennedy School Dean Douglas W. Elmendorf, according to the board's website. It's like they bleach bit their names out of there. They went the Hillary Clinton route and just got rid of all the information about who these people are. It's awesome to see, honestly, right? I'm glad to see that they've been caught up in this fallout so completely that they can't even sit on these boards anymore. They can't have their tentacles just entrenched in all of these parts of society anymore because they've been outed. Everybody sees who they are. Dubin and Wexner have each endowed fellowships in their names at the center, which provides funding for fellows to study at the Kennedy School and cultivates principled, effective public leaders, according to its website. Oh, I wonder why they would want to have their fingers involved in that pie. I wonder why people like Wexner and Dubin would want to help cultivate tomorrow's leaders. What are they looking for? Their next pupil? They looking for their next Jeffrey Epstein? Is that what they're looking to do? Have their next, guy come up, their next front man come front and center? I mean, these people shouldn't be around anybody in society. Never mind the future leaders of the world, right? Sheesh. In 2010, Dubin donated $5 million to establish the Dubin Graduate Fellowship for emerging leaders at the center. Wexner, who helped found the center in 2000 with his wife, had donated more than $42 million to Harvard as of 2012. He also boasts a building with his name on the Kennedy School's campus. Well, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice for Mr. Les Wexner, Mr. Elite himself? Has his name all over these campuses, huh? If Harvard was doing the right thing, they would just remove his name off of all of these buildings too. Thank you for the donation, but we're removing your name off of the buildings now. That's what I would do if I was them. In addition to their ties to Harvard, Dubin and Wexner also had relationships with Epstein, the former Harvard donor and financier pedophile who earned national infamy for allegedly running a sex trafficking ring that solicited girls as young as 14. Last summer, Dubin became implicated in the Epstein scandal after a woman said Epstein forced her to have sex with Dubin, according to recently unsealed court documents. And we've also talked about the young Swedish girl in the Dubin's kitchen. Look, the Dubins are very, very, very much involved in this. We know that Glenn Dubin's wife, Eva, and Jeffrey Epstein were very, very good friends. We know that their daughter called Jeffrey Epstein Uncle Jeffy. And we also know that Jeffrey Epstein, his old perverted ass, had his sights set on perhaps marrying their daughter. And to tell you the truth, I wouldn't even be shocked if Eva Anderson was okay with it. That's how weird and wacky she seems to me. She seems to be like the cult type, my daughter and Jeffrey Epstein, perfect. That's the kind of marriage we want. It's like acceptable in their world or something. It's gross. These people are just gross. For decades, Epstein served as Wexner's personal financial advisor. Wexner has since asserted that he severed ties with Epstein once allegations surfaced in 2007 that Epstein solicited sex from a minor, allegations for which Epstein pleaded guilty in a Florida court. Aside from his ties to Epstein, Wexner, who served as CEO of Victoria's Secret's parent company, L Brands, until February 20th, allegedly created a workplace culture that enabled sexual misconduct to persist for decades, according to news reports. We read that article. It was in the Times, I believe, and it's obvious what was going on at Victoria's Secret. It's obvious what was going on in the whole entire company. We know that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just somebody who was, acting within a vacuum. We know that Les Wexner and his buddy Rezik were involved in creating an environment of sexual misconduct around the company. And it's just gross that they got away with it for so long. And the only reason they got away with it so long is because they're so powerful as far as, their finances go, that nobody in the media wanted to take them on. They didn't want to be destroyed. And that's what it all comes down to. The media they didn't have the courage to chase the story where they needed to chase it. They didn't have the inner fortitude to do it. Center for Public Leadership spokesperson Lael S. Harris confirmed in an email that Wexner and Dubin no longer serve on the center's leadership council. She also indicated that scratching off the billionaires' names from the website is nothing out of the ordinary. No, of course not. People that donate millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars to your school, they just always have their names scrubbed off of the website because that's just, general standard operating procedure. Has nothing to do with you're embarrassed now all of a sudden, right? Has nothing to do with you're trying to save face, right? Like I said, get rid of their names on the buildings, give the money back. I'm sure there's plenty of other rich people looking to line up to have their name on a building at such an elite university as Harvard. Members of the advisory councils within the school often rotate out after a period of time, Harris wrote. The membership of those councils is posted publicly on the websites of the relevant research centers. Just business as usual, folks. Nothing to see here. There's no story here, folks. Business as usual. Keep it moving. Spokespeople for Dubin and Wexner did not respond to requests for comment for this article. Of course not. They never respond to requests. It's again, they believe that they can operate at a different level than the rest of us. They have no rules. They have no restraints. There's nothing there that keeps them on the same path, I guess you would say, as we're on, right? We understand that if we break the law, one of us breaks the law, forget it. There's consequences. Not for people like this. They can have whatever kind of seedy associations they want. They can have all sorts of fraudulent money dealings, and nothing happens. They just go about their business for, decades. Meanwhile, the average person doesn't pay their taxes. Forget it. You're going to jail. The IRS is coming to garnish your wages. They're going to crush you. Your whole life is over. Never mind laundering money or being involved in a trafficking ring. Earlier this month, Harvard students called on the university to address its relationship to those donors in an article published by Business Insider. In the article, a student described the discomfort students who have their funding tied to those individuals harbor. Well, yeah, you can't really blame these students, right? And you can't blame the people getting these endowments. These are people that are chosen for these scholarships or these endowments, and then they're funneled these funds. It's not like they chose, all right, well, I want Jeffrey Epstein and Glenn Dubin to donate money for my scholarship. So the blame is not with the students, in my opinion. The blame is with the faculty and with the university for not vetting who these donors are. Like I said, there's an endless amount of money for places like Harvard. There's an endless amount of money coming into places like that. They do not need to be in bed with Dubin and Epstein and Wexner. Kennedy School student Catherine C. Williams told the Crimson that because Harvard did not publicly acknowledge Wexner and Dubin's departures from the council, she was left wondering if the change in leadership reflected Harvard's severing of ties to those donors or merely a surface-level change. Again, like I said, Harvard looking to save face. If they really cared, they would have never been involved with these people in the first place. So the blame lies directly with Harvard. This storied institution, this Ivy League school, all of these uppity, point their nose up at the rest of us types that come out of this place, right? Meanwhile, they're all being funded. The whole school's being funded. All of the trustees are taking money and donations and gifts from a pedophile. It's such a joke. It's such a joke to see these people actually think that we should listen to what they have to say when all they do is they're involved with people like Epstein on a regular basis. Never mind another piece of work that they produced in Alan Dershowitz out of Harvard. I'm starting to think that Harvard is just the kind of place that maybe we should just shut it down, huh? Just shut this place down. How many illegal donations have they gotten from ill-gotten gains? Maybe it should all be investigated. Audit it all at this point. Does that mean that they are no longer funders? She asked. Does it mean that the school has meaningfully altered its relationship with these individuals? All good questions. Williams said she believes the Kennedy School's relationship with Wexner and Dubin run counter to its mission. HKS is all about public service. It's about leadership, ethics, integrity, she said. It just struck me as concerning or like a point of tension that we espouse all of those values as a school and we seek to train and educate future public leaders, but we have these ties. Exactly what I was just saying. You can't run around and act like you're producing all of these leaders and all of these people that are supposed to come into public life and, lead from the front and set policy for the rest of us when you have these disgusting ties to these people who are counterintuitive to all of that. So how can you possibly think that the rest of us from the outside looking in are going to believe that you're really sending out these great leaders into the world when your track record is what it is? And these students that are there right now, like this young lady who's speaking out, I'm sure there's going to be a ton of really well-educated, smart kids that come out of Harvard, right? Why should they have to have the stigma of Epstein and Wexner and Glenn Dubin hanging over their heads when there's a bunch of other donors for Harvard from where Harvard could get this money? So why don't they just cut ties completely with these people? Another Kennedy School student who spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of retaliation from the Kennedy School said Harvard must realize the legitimacy it bestows individuals who donate to the university. The student called on Harvard to realize its own worth and put in place moral standards for donors. I mean, is that too much to ask? You don't have somebody sitting around when these donations are coming in, hops on DuckDuckGo and, types in the name or punches it into one of those search engines to see what exactly this person's involved in or how this person gained the money that they are trying to donate? You don't think that would be a good idea? Some basic vetting of the people that are donating to your school? It's probably a good idea, right? And I'm sure that they do that. So how is it that Dubin and Wexner and Epstein slipped through the cracks, folks? Do you think that it was done by mistake, that they just weren't vetted correctly? Or perhaps the university didn't give a damn because we're talking about so much money? I'm going to go with the university didn't give a damn. Williams also said she would feel reassured if Harvard administrators acknowledged questions regarding donors' conduct. In an email sent to fellowship applicants on February 7th and obtained by the Crimson, the center relayed an expectation to applicants that they research the donors funding their prospective programs. That's what I just said. Remember, folks, I don't read these articles before we read them together here on the Daily Drop. So this is exactly what I was just saying. I mean, how hard is it to vet these donors? Before submitting your applications, we expect that you have thoroughly reviewed all pertinent information related to the fellowships you have applied to, Center for Public Leadership staff member Brandon Ward wrote in the email. That information, he went on to specify, includes the history and background of the donor. Basic stuff, folks. Basic stuff. If anyone's ever worked in politics, they know that they got to vet whoever's donating. When big people are donating that kind of money, you have to vet where it's coming from, or you end up like Pete Buttigieg, who gets money from Dubin and has to give it back. You have to know exactly where this money's coming from, and that's no different for these big universities, or else they leave themselves open to shit like this. Last month, discomfort about Harvard's ties to donors who cultivated relationships with Epstein came out into the public at the Kennedy School Institute of Politics. At a forum honoring #MeToo, movement founder Tarana Burke Williams, who attended the discussion, asked Burke how Harvard should grapple with those ties during the questions and answers portion of the evening. Burke, sitting alongside the event's moderator, Center for Public Leadership Director Wendy R. Sherman, told the audience that Harvard should acknowledge donors' ties to Epstein according to a video stream of the event. 100%. Harvard needs to validate these ties. They need to acknowledge these ties, because what it does is it shows that they're taking this seriously. They're taking the fact that these people are being, credibly accused here, folks, credibly accused of some heinous crimes. It shows that they're taking that seriously, because without them doing this, it's like a big joke to them. They don't care. They don't care where the money comes from. As long as they're filling up their bank accounts, as long as they're just raking in the dough, the source of that dough does not matter. Courage in a lot of places, especially institutions, looks like transparency, she said. Harvard is an example for other institutions. This is how you do this. You look it dead in the eye and say, we made a mistake, or we took too long, or whatever the thing is, but here's what we're going to do going forward, and I hope that happens. 100%. That's the correct way to do this. Own up to it. Own up to the fact that the trustees and the people that were involved with taking this money were wrong, that they didn't follow proper protocol, and then purge them. All of them have to go. Anybody who was on the board, anybody who was involved, they have to go. Plenty of capable people of replacing them. University President Lawrence S. Bacow apologized for Harvard's past dealings with Epstein in a September email to university affiliates. Bacow also announced the launch of a probe into Epstein's donations to Harvard. In addition to the recent removal of Dubin and the Wexners from the Center's Leadership Council, the updated website also admits reference to the Wexner couple as the founders of the center. It now includes a sentence explaining that council members often rotate out after a period of time, as Harris noted in her email. Well, I'm glad. The Wexners shouldn't have validation. Who cares if they donated that money? Don't give them the validation that they're so deeply looking for. They need to be completely and utterly ostracized for their role in Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking ring. Leon D. Black, a graduate of Harvard Business School whose professional dealings with Epstein have also come under scrutiny, remains on the Center's Leadership Council per its website. And right there is why we can't trust Harvard, folks. Leon Black, another enabler, another one of the billionaire enablers that helped Jeffrey Epstein be validated, that helped Jeffrey Epstein be thought of as somebody who moved in those circles, as somebody who was very powerful, somebody that was amongst the elite. All of these enablers, all of them, played their role in helping Epstein get away with his crimes for so damn long. And it's nice to see that Wexner and Glenn Dubin are facing the backlash from their behavior. Now, again, it's not them in handcuffs, right? It's not them being subpoenaed yet by the authorities. But what it is it's movement. It's movement in the right direction. It's another slap in the face to these guys. And at the end of the day, we've talked about it a million times, their whole entire role within their elite society is in flux now. And they're losing face. And we know that's a huge deal for these people. It's a huge deal for these narcissists, these people with these gigantic egos that can't take even the littlest, slightest bit of a slap. And that's exactly what's happening to all of these so-called elites right now. They're being slapped collectively by the public. And boy, is it enjoyable. If you'd like to contact me, you could do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. If you'd like to find me on Twitter, you can do that at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, everybody, I will be back tomorrow, and we're going to do 3 episodes tomorrow. So until then, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your St. Patrick's Day, and have a fantastic evening.